Hello, and welcome to Morph Minutes presented by Studio M Financial. Studio M Financial exists to help you change the sound of your money through financial education and coaching. I'm your host, Katrina Pitts, instructor and financial coach here at Studio M, and today is part 3 of our 4-part series on decision making. The first week we talked about major purchases. Last week we talked about the amount in the form of payment, and this week we're going to talk about timing of the expense. And I actually don't think I mentioned this in the first 2 episodes of this, but I'm going to drop in on the website this particular one-pager and the notes that go along with each of these sessions. So you can find them there on the website in our Morph Minutes section of the website. So you will be able to have access to these as soon as we are done with this. I will post them on the website. So again, part 3, time and the expense. So when do I need to make this purchase is really kind of the separate from the, I guess, in addition to the amount, the when is really a big driving factor of what brings the sort of anxiety of a major purchase. And we may not describe it as anxiety, we may not describe it as, sort of shoulders raised kind of a response, but anytime we pay a lot of money for things, whether we want them or not, or whether they're for fun things or not, there's still oh my goodness, this is a lot of money that I'm getting ready to pay for this. So there is some emotion, there is a kind of physiological response that we do have to those things, but some of it really is rooted in the I have to do this now, whether it's an emergency or whether it's just an immediate deadline that we need to take care of this. And when do I need to pay this? Is this expense ongoing or one time? And there is a different psychology of that. Is I am laying this money out once, and so I'm done, versus I'm gonna have to keep paying and keep paying and keep paying and keep paying until this is paid off in some time in the future. So if it's ongoing, can this expense be included in our monthly budget? Meaning it is now a line item in this. And if it can be, what impact does that have on our other financial responsibilities and obligations that we have currently in our budget, our utilities, our transportation, whatever. And then if it's a one-time, how will this expense be paid? We're back to what we talked about last week, cash or credit. And again, if it's cash, are we replenishing the account? What's our plan to replenish it? If it's credit, what's our plan to pay this off? So is it ongoing or one time? If it's ongoing, it needs to fit into our monthly budget without negatively impacting the other things that we have going on, or meaning it's preventing us from paying our bills we already have. And if it's one time, what are even those one-time examples? And I think we talked about this last week, or maybe the week before, in major purchases. It could be deposits. It could be we're purchasing books, we're purchasing certain materials and resources for a class that we want to take. We are purchasing, if it's a one-time thing, we are purchasing administrative fees if we're moving to a new apartment, moving to a new home. Actually, home is a little bit different, but moving to an apartment, administrative fees, application fees. Are we one-time thing on a particular maintenance that we are paying for this X thing to be fixed, and we don't have to pay this on an ongoing rate like we would insurance or we would for our utility bill or whatever. And which is, again, a little bit different as to how we have to handle that or how we can handle that with our budget. So is this expense one time or is this expense ongoing? Was this expense anticipated? And sometimes we talk about this, especially around the holidays, and we are getting ready to move into the holidays. We just had Thanksgiving. We're getting ready to go into Christmas in the next couple of weeks, which means is when people remember we're in December and we have Christmas. And even though we know it's the same time every single year, we don't always plan for that far enough in advance. And we put a lot of strain on our budget. We put a lot of strain on our credit card statements until when they come in January, end of January, early February, we have this sort of jaw-dropping moment of, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I paid that much money in gifts and expenditures and what have you. So did we know that this was anticipated, especially birthdays or anniversaries? We know that they happen the same time every year. How can we be more proactive in planning for that and making sure that we have either set aside the amount that's necessary, or we are doing what's called a sinking fund, and we are putting a dollar amount or a monthly deposit into that account so that when we need it in the future, we know exactly that we have the funds available for that. So Was this expense anticipated? If yes, how far in advance did we know this? And did we plan effectively for this? So if we knew about this 6 months ago, did we put a plan in place for over the course of the next 6 months? If we knew about this in June, the expenses in December, over June through December, did we plan appropriately for this expense? Meaning, did we put $100 because we need 600? So by the time December comes around, we have the amount of money available for that. Or did we say, it's going to cost me $600. I currently have $400. So now I need to make up the next $200 over the next 6 months, and I can put that money aside and be fine. And so I know to have the $600 necessary come December. And if we didn't plan for this, how can we better plan for it in the future? How can we better prepare for this in the future? Especially if it's something that we know happens annually. People get tripped up with I live in a state that has a car registration. So every single year, I have to get my car and my tags registered and renewed. It happens every single year, a particular month of the year, and I know that. Did I plan for that? Subscriptions that are once a year. Those are huge. And I thought about one and I forgot about it. I didn't look it up. I didn't forget about it. I just didn't look it up. The thought crossed my mind. Oh, I remember I purchased a subscription around this time last year and I didn't stop myself to go and look. One, do I even still have that subscription? And two, what account is it coming out of? And it cost me $140 after overdraft fees because it was an account that I don't use anymore and the money wasn't there. And because it's subscription, even though the card was off, the price, not the price, but the purchase was applied, and I get a note from my bank that says you may have insufficient funds. And I was like, I definitely do have insufficient funds in there. And so it cost me. And I was super mad at myself because I thought, now I got to move money over because I didn't think about that. I didn't plan for money to be in that account when that subscription went through. Or just cancel the subscription, right? And not cost myself any money for that at all. So those kinds of things as well. What's the timing of this expense? And it was $140, so less than our $200 major purchase, but it was still enough for me to go, dang it, I should have done something differently. And when I thought about it, I should have addressed it then because I would have saved myself a lot of money, no fees, no email, no negative impact on my bank account. So if we know that it's coming, plan for it. If we do things like I did and forget about it and then remember it and then not do anything about it, let's not do that. Let's plan for it appropriately and make sure that we have the funds available. And if we didn't anticipate this expense, is it something that we can prepare for next year? Or was it really just came out of the blue and there's no way to anticipate it? And if that's the case, then we're all, working on it on the fly and trying to figure out a solution, in real time. And that's fine also. But if we know about this, and I mentioned this earlier, do we consider a sinking fund for major purchases? If we're looking for things like a car, or if we're looking for things that we need to fix, like I said, I think we use the example of fixing things on your car and you need a particular service or you need a particular part for that. If you are super smart and you can DIY car repairs, I'm not that person. I've done enough car repairs on my car to know that I do not want to do car repairs on my car. I can do it to an extent, but then we have to solicit people who are far more knowledgeable about it than I do because I have come to the end of my capabilities. But it's sinking fund for that. Have we set aside money in advance so that we have that amount available because it is a larger price tag associated with that? And then also that sinking fund really reduces our reliance on credit and we have more control over our monthly obligations. I've talked to many people who have had large expenses and in the default or the first thought that goes through their head is, what's the monthly payment? So instead of backing up and saying, this is X amount, we immediately break this into, oh, well, it's just $15 a month monthly payment. And you're like, well, do we have to do the monthly payment or do we have the $60 and then we can just pay it and be done with it? So sometimes we fall into that trap of, well, it's just another payment. It's just another payment. It's just a payment. It's just a payment. And then we look at our budget. It's just line after line item after line item after line item of just payment. And we look at that in the aggregate and we say, Why am I doing $7 here, $14 there, $24 there? And maybe we could have addressed this a little bit differently and paid it in full. So one, we haven't, we owe nobody anything. And we've also reduced the number of obligations on our budget. And I am big on having as much autonomy and having as much of a direct decision making in where my money goes versus external third party people telling me where it goes. My apartment complex tell me where my money goes. My electricity provider tell me where it goes. Insurance tells me where it goes. And then it's a very short list of people after that tell me, and I really want to keep it that way. I want to have as much flexibility on my budget as possible. And the more payments we add to it, the less autonomy we have. It's more people telling us when and what we have to spend versus me saying when and where I want to spend it. So just a little side note. So the sinking fund, again, helps to reduce our reliance on credit, and we have more control over monthly obligations. So the third question is, do I have to purchase this service or product immediately? And we talked a little bit about this in the first part of this series on major purchases, of what's the time frame of this. It's not an emergency, but it may have a deadline that is within the next 30 days, within the next 90 days, or within the next 2 days, because we just learned about this great training program that we want to participate in because it aligns perfectly with career goals that I have. And I didn't even realize it was being offered at this point. I've been looking at other places and other things. And so now I'm aware of this. Now I want to take advantage of it. And oh my goodness, it's $300 and it's due in the next 2 days. What am I going to do about this? So do I have to purchase this service or product immediately? If yes, what is the deadline for me to purchase this service or product? Is it immediately, or meaning less than 2 days? And if no, if I do not have to purchase this immediately, can I pause and can I take a good 36 to 48 hour sort of thoughtfulness, consideration period, and then I can research it. I can consider budget implications, and I can consider goal alignment. Which is this question here is probably the most important of the three for me, because the amount may not change, and we'll talk about that next week. So a little bit of a tease there. The amount may not change, the deadline may not change, but I really need to think about do I have a moment to sort of pause and think about this? And I'll put this in the context of clothing and shopping. Many times I've online shopped at different retailers that I really like for shoes or clothes, whatever. And I've put items in my basket. And as I'm looking at them, I'm going back and forth between my computer and my closet to see, does this purchase make sense? Does it go with what I already have in my closet? Does this amount make sense? Because when you see that total, dollar amount in your basket, you go, ooh, okay, let me think about this. And I walked away from my computer for a day or so. And sometimes, items start clicking out of my basket because they've sold out. Okay, I didn't need that item, or I didn't want it enough to click the purchase button immediately. And I thought about it. And you say, well, it's just clothes. It could be anything. If you're looking for a computer, if you're looking for a different electronic, if you're looking for a vehicle, it could be applied to anything. If there is no emergency attached to it, meaning I cannot do this, but for this, or my kid is really sick and I need to find them medical attention, medical care, or they injured themselves playing soccer or whatever. Those things are very different. But if there's no immediacy to this and it's still a very large purchase, I can and I should take the time to think about it. I should take the time to consider the implications of this purchase and settle it in my own heart, settle in my own mind that I am okay and comfortable with this purchase. So do I have a deadline? Is it immediate? Again, and if it could be I've been wanting to go to travel to this particular place, and oh my goodness, the plane ticket is $120 cheaper today than it was when I looked at it 3 weeks ago. And the sale goes off in 2 days. I'm saving money, but I also have kind of a short timeline to it. Think about it. Okay, does it make sense? Yes, it's still it is in furtherance of a travel goal that I had. It's still a major purchase, but you give yourself a little bit of time to consider, a little bit of time to make sure that it is the right purchase and the right time for you to make that purchase. And then just again, like I said, give yourself the benefit of just thinking through it. So this week, again, timing of expense. This is week 3. First week was major purchases. Week 2 was the amount in the form of payment, cash, credit, borrowing from friends, borrowing from family, whatever methodology you choose. The timing of the expense was this week. Is this one time? Is this ongoing? Was this expense anticipated? Was it planned for? Did I save for it? Did I kind of earmark it in my budget that X time of the month or X time of the year I'm going to have to pay for this? And do I have to purchase this product or service immediately? Is there a time crunch associated with this? Is there a short deadline associated with this, or do I have time to think about it? And even if short deadline, give myself time to still think and consider the implications of this purchase, how it aligns with goals, how it aligns with short-term goals, long-term goals, how it aligns with just the impact on my budget as a whole. So that's week 3, timing of expense. And then, like I said, I'm going to drop in this one pager that's entitled What to Consider When Making a Large Purchase. I'm going to upload that to the website. So it's available along with these 4 one-pagers for each individual session that we have had over the last month or so. So week 4, next week, we're going to talk about alternatives. So with that, thank you again for your time today. I much appreciate it. Truly, truly, truly appreciate it. You could have spent your 15, 18 minutes doing a variety of other things, but I appreciate you taking your time to spend it with us. And hopefully it's been helpful. Hopefully it's given some good thought prompters on even previous purchases you've made and things that you would do differently, and then applying that to future purchases that you have upcoming for the rest of this year, and really just kind of going forward. Encourage you to either subscribe to our YouTube page, look us up on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find us at Studio in some places Studio in Fin, and some places Studio in Financial written out completely. But you can find us. Again, I'm Katrina Pitts. Thank you again for your time today, and until we meet, keep working on the change.